Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Whiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Whiz, and welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in 15 minutes or less to build your business. Our guest today is Dan LeFave, and he's got life's second chance whenever his life was spared in a fatal car accident that took 3 other people's lives. He's the #1 best-selling author of Live the Life of Your Dreams, How to Stop Working Insane Hours and Start Living an Awesome Life. His unique outside-of-the-box thinking has helped businesses grow 6, 7, and even 8-figure revenues. His shortcuts to success help small biz owners shift from scattered and disorganized thinking to orderly and systemized habits in a few short weeks. Welcome, Dan. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's great to be here, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you. And to begin with, could you please share a challenge that you had to overcome in order to obtain your level of success?
Sure. Well, the key for me was I was in corporate for long enough that I had such habits and such such beliefs about who I was and what I was doing and what I was capable of. And but fortunately for me, and frankly, in corporate, I did all sorts of things. I mean, I did project management. I wasn't qualified. I did real estate negotiations, not qualified. I helped my brother build a business to $1 million plus, not qualified. I was in my 20s, right? And these are the kinds of things that I did. And then I went on to help a corporation add tens of millions of dollars to their portfolio. And again, not qualified. And then the day came when I had the realization, because this was a quasi-government organization. I was allowed a parental leave. They gave me 36-week vacation or parental leave with almost 100% pay. So I was like, I'll take it. But that was my second son. And I was like, wow, what am I doing? At the end of it, I was like 3 hours of commuting every day. And, it was painful. And I realized that's not for me. So then I went back to work reluctantly. I even took extra vacation just so I didn't have to go back at Christmas time. So, but then I go back reluctantly. Then I get recruited. But then 3 months in, probationary period, first time ever, I got fired, and that was the kick. So I got a second chance at life when I had that near-death experience when I was 7. In a coma and almost died, and 3 people died in the accident, but I survived. And then this time I got a jolt again. I got a kick and an opportunity to do something new. And then that caused all sorts of soul searching. So I didn't know what to do. So I started soul searching, and I started asking questions, what do I do? And what do I know? And things like that. And then a friend of mine who was a therapist, I said, I trusted in her. I said, what do I do? And she says, well, what do you want? I said, I want to be with my family and be inspired. And she said, well, say a prayer. I said, okay, I'm game. Right. So I say a prayer. Then the next day I get a phone call from my friend's father, Ken, who's building a network marketing business. And he'd been building it for 20, 30 years. And I had attempted it with him years before. But in my mind, I was holding the phone and thinking, is this the answer? Is this the response? And anyway, I went down that path. But, a friend of mine gave me Augmendino's work, which was the 10 scrolls. And the 10 scrolls, you're meant to read them. They're 10 paragraphs. You read them 3 times a day, every day for 30 days.
I've never heard of that. What's it called again?
Mendino is his name, O.G. Mendino. He was editor of Success Magazine. He wrote The World's Greatest Salesman, very influential in his time. Anyway, I grasped onto that. I was like, okay, Steve's successful. This guy who has this real estate company, I'm like, he's successful. I'll do what he says. I'll take those things. I'll read them. And there's little phrases embedded. I'll greet this day with love in my heart. I'll multiply my value 100-fold. All these little embedded phrases, which now have become a part of me because I said them 90 times each. So, but in a month. But then I looked up Augmendino. I find Dave Blanchard, because Augmendino is no longer here. Dave's the CEO of Augmendino Foundation. And so then I see a video and he says, buy 10 of my books, get 8 weeks of coaching. I'm like, hey man, I'm game. I need some guidance. Right? So you know what? I said yes to that. And then I got his books. I gave, he said, buy 10 of my books, give them away or whatever. Right. So I did that. But then I looked him up and I saw he lived in Bountiful, Utah. Well, guess what? That network marketing business, which I was like grinding like sandpaper on sandpaper, trying to build that business, it's not for me, but I did it for 6 months. But at that period, in 6 months, at that 6 month period, Dave, I found out he lives in Bountiful, Utah, and I was flying to Salt Lake to go to Provo. And I was like, hey, maybe he'll have a coffee. So I sent him an email and he says, hey, when do you fly out? Sunday. He says, come over and stay at my house. And I'm like, that was the first step for me.
Right.
The first thing I'd overcome. And then at the end of the day, after watching a movie in his theater, he has a beautiful house. And after watching the movie in his theater and everything, he says to me, we met in his office and I said, show me where you make your videos and do your magic. And he said, Dan, I think you'd make a good coach. And then that was the seed that was planted in me that started me on this journey. I came home. A friend of mine was studying Bob Proctor's stuff. Here I am, my friend studying Bob Proctor's stuff. And again, I'm great at handling money. So I had all this money. So I was like, what do I do? So she says, here, buy all his programs. So I bought $7,000 worth of programs, study and learn. Right. And then next thing, she says, why don't you talk to his team? I'm talking to his team on the phone a few weeks later. And the guy in his team says, let's get Bob on the phone. And I'm like, sure, fine. I don't know Bob. And then they get Bob Proctor on the phone. And then I'm talking to Bob and he says a few things to me. And again, he's planting the seed of becoming a coach, transformational leader. And then that's where it hooked me. But then he said, spend another $13,000 to get certified and teach my program. I did. I spent $20,000, no income. My wife's unemployed, and kids at home. Right. And like totally, like most people would say you're stupid. And people probably did. I just don't remember.
Well, I love that you was all in, and I take it that your wife supported you during this too.
Yeah, thankfully, because otherwise I'd probably be in a corporate job right now and we wouldn't be talking.
Right. And you would be miserable. I mean, it's so sad how many people in jobs are miserable. I think it's something like 80 or 85%.
Like, yeah, it's so mundane and boring, and that's the thing. So yeah, so I had to break that mold. And then from there, it was even more, like I learned Bob's teaching methodology and so on, and then went to the world and taught that. They told me to sell it for a certain price. I sold it for more, and then I co-authored a book with Deepak Chopra, Jack Canfield, and Dennis Waitley. And, that spawned a whole bunch of opportunities. And, but the whole point of this story is that it helped me to see another side of myself and believe in myself and then take these steps forward. And I just kept saying yes ever since. And I still say yes.
That's the big thing. You kept saying yes. And even going back to your accident when you were 7 years old, and so you said you was in a coma, 3 other people died. How do you think that impacted everything? Just your let's say your love for life and your gusto for, hey, I got fired, so I'm going to go out and find out what it is I want to do and live life to the fullest. So do you think that the accident had anything to do with that?
I do think so. It's pretty foggy though, because I was in a coma, and I remember one little incident at the hospital where there was a girl who had a birthday, and I remember I wanted to get her a chocolate bar at the stand, but that was it. But then from then I went home. I was home for 2 weeks. I have all the scar here and stitches and everything. I'm home for 2 weeks and then back to school. Like if this is in the 1970s, right? Where it's like, you're okay, back into the real world. And but yeah, I remember afterwards, I was paying so close of attention. My dad was an entrepreneur. He was a butcher. We had a meat shop. It was about a 30-minute drive. I remember watching for him to come home every night, and I was aware of that. And I was kind of looking at the world and asking, I didn't have any relevance. So I don't know if I was thinking differently, but I started asking questions about, purpose and looking around the world and kind of paying attention to little nuances. And it's made me hyper observant now because I can see little things and I pay attention. And now I have a saying that goes along with that, which is life isn't happening to us, it's responding to us. And so I look to the world to see what's being reflected back at me to tell me if I'm on track or out of alignment, or if I'm attracting, poisonous negative mindsets in people. I got to realize, well, I must be projecting something of that
Mhm.
nature for it to be, coming into my life. So yeah, it caused me to really look at the world differently and ask questions, and just seek out little paths.
Mhm. I think too, just from what you just said with your father saying, hey, you was home for a couple weeks and go back to school, is that you were taught by your parents that regardless what crappy things happen in life, life goes on and you get up, you dust yourself off, and you move forward, make the best of it.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And
Which helped when you got fired because that's exactly what you did.
yeah. In fact, I remember it clearly. It's like, called my wife, hey, I just got let go. I'm going to Costco, pick up a few things. We'll talk about it when I get home. And that was the extent of it. Right.
Right.
Other than a few words to the people, I said, I think you're making a big mistake.
Right. I love that story. So fascinating. And I know that you teach different things about time and mindset, how to get out of the poverty mentality and stuff. So what do you believe is the most effective way, and how do you help your clients overcome and ditch that poverty mindset and reclaim a rich mindset?
Well, I think the key thing that people don't realize is they're having inner dialogues with money. They're having conversations with money, if you will, and they don't realize that. And those conversations aren't even theirs. So they, as early, I had parents that had 9 children in one family and 13 in another. They didn't have money. I mean, they were trying to just split hairs and hand me downs and all this, right? Grow their own food and all that, and hunt for. My dad was grew up in the East Coast and
Mhm.
hunted for deer and whatever, right? And was a lumberjack, right? So so the key thing is, I help my clients to realize, okay, what's that inner dialogue? What's those inner conversations that we're having? Because usually there's two. It's like the iceberg: 10% above, 90%
Mhm.
below. There's internal conversations and external conversations, right? And the external ones, you know, oftentimes don't match the internal ones. I want that new car. You'll never afford that. Right? You
Right.
can't buy that, right? And so the way to ditch it is to create that contrast. So psychological terms, there's something called cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when you start saying something that you want, and you do it with emotion, if you can do that too, and with emphasis, because the subconscious listens all the time, it's eavesdropping. So you might as well give it the software you want and create the program you want. So if you can create that cognitive dissonance, say, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have all the money I need to do everything I want all the time, right? And something of that nature, that's going to go against the belief, which is, yeah, you know what, your parents only made
Mhm.
$40,000 a year. What are you talking? Like, that's the inner voice, right? And so I teach my clients, let's find out what that inner voice is, and then let's create a statement that's going to cause this conflict. Because
Mhm.
when you cause the conflict, guess what? The mind wants to solve it. It's a solving mechanism, a problem-solving mechanism. So when you give it that challenge, it's like, okay, the reticular activating system starts working. It's like, okay, we got to solve this. How are we going to solve it?
Mhm.
Okay, we got a problem. The problem is this old belief. This guy's talking about this new thing, and it's fun over here. Then that's kind of like the voice of the mind. And then it's
Mhm.
like, okay, so then as you keep persisting with what it is that you want, then you can ditch the old stuff, which isn't yours. You didn't ask for it. It was given. We
Right.
couldn't filter. Actually, the term when we're children is hypnagogic trance. We're in a trance. We have no reasoning ability. Up till about 7 years old, reasoning turns on. Then up till 7, we are complete open books, and anything that's said or done or experientially learned goes right in, and we become the beliefs, habits, practices of the people around us. And then
Mhm.
we grow up and we're like, oh man, this is no good.
Mhm.
I want fun. I want to travel. I want to, so
Right.
we need to create the evidence for that. So that's the key.
And even you were speaking earlier about the Og scrolls, the 10 scrolls, and it sounds like the 10 scrolls even are good to change your thinking, to get it into your subconscious, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Repetition, you've probably heard the saying, repetition is king. And it is, because it's the repetition. So let's say if your parents said to you, Cindy, you're maybe your father said, Cindy, you're my little princess. You're my little princess. You're my little princess. you're going to believe daddy's little princess, right? Daddy's little princess.
Mhm.
And that's the repetition. So when we do that kind of repetition towards the thing we want, the same thing happens. Eventually our mind just gives in after a while, and then we're like, okay, well, we're this new thing. And then you start creating opportunities for it, which is amazing when that starts happening. And you're like, oh man, I like going to high-end resorts, and I like going to these beautiful, golf
Right.
courses in tropical places, right? So
Very, very good. Yes. And I think even going back to, the mind and what we're telling ourselves, I think sometimes this causes business owners to play small. So how can business owners really skyrocket their money-making potential and stop playing small? Any other tips and tricks besides just the self-talk?
oh yes, to stop playing small, I have a methodology I call expectation bridge. And so and because we live in our current reality, but guess what? Reality is only based on our beliefs, our past memories and experiences. So if we have to be in a fantasy land at some point in time, which is our future thinking, our future perception of ourselves. And so what I say to my clients is, let's build that character. And sometimes it's a literal character, a Mark Twain, a Bono, a Lady Gaga, right? They create the name, they create the personality, the characteristics and everything. If they're not that creative, then all we do is just to create, what does that future look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? The sense, let's turn on the five senses and
Mhm.
and see what that feels like. But then let's bridge it. So it's like we're on two sides. So we're bridging from our current reality to our future reality. So we have to play both sides and then meet in the middle. And so one way to create that is to establish an expectation for a future version of ourselves, a better version of ourselves, and fabricate it. And it's as easy as writing in a journal, just a little paragraph every day. And that's something I do. It's a neat little practice because you can just make it up. There's no limitations. It's fabricated. I mean,
Mhm.
how did Mark Twain do it? How did Bono? How did Lady Gaga do it?
Right.
Like, you know?
And that's what's so interesting. Our whole life is nothing but the story we're telling ourselves. So with this bridge that you're doing is you're creating your future self, who you want to be. But by journaling it every day, then you're helping your current self to meet your future self and meet in the middle of the bridge.
Yes. And the great thing is, I mean, we have to move forward through life, but when we look backward, we connect the dots. So just by journaling, we're creating a history. And then one day we're going to be able to connect those dots. We'll flip through our journal and say, well, that happened, that happened, that happened. It's like, wow, it's amazing when you put the intention out there, because thoughts and actions are the only things we control. So we might as well, make them worthwhile. Like I think about compounding our thoughts, like mental currency. Invest in what you want. You wouldn't buy a dumpy place in a swamp with a graveyard next door, a fixer-upper, and flip it. You wouldn't. It just.
Right.
But when it comes to our thoughts, whoa, we have almost no control over what we're doing, because it's memories and relevance and experience, and it's just stuff. I understand that. Why? Well, because it happened to me when I was younger, and this is how I react. And we don't think about it that way. It just happens. And we're 80-90% habit. So we only have a little, I call it the habit gap. We have a tiny little gap every day, maybe
A
5-10%.
what gap?
A habit gap, because
Yeah.
we're habitual. So we have
Right.
to
We
get
have
inside of our
habit
habit gap.
gap.
Yeah, but maybe it's not an hour or 2 or 3. It might just be little increments. And so, so I teach my clients to get inside their habit gap. And I'm like, yeah, hey, when do you have time? I don't. I say, will you go to the bathroom? Yeah. Okay. You okay doing affirmations? Great. Got a dry erase marker? Awesome. Go to the bathroom mirror, write that affirmation. Like we come up with an affirmation, write it in the mirror. I said, every time you go in there, read that. Now
Right.
you've got get inside your habit gap, right? You're no longer on these trains of thought, and which is all business or life or whatever, and you plug into something like that. Or like I do, I get up early every morning, and the first 2 to 2.5 hours of my morning are me. Reading, writing, setting intentions, exercise, walking in nature, affirming, all that stuff. And I have a friend who's done this 40-50 years. He has a super successful business in life, and I can see it, but it is 2 hours of writing affirmations every morning without failure.
So
And
do you meditate too, or did you say meditate, or you're
I
just
do, but
writing?
Not in the morning, but that's my midday thing. So
Ah,
I practice intermittent fasting, so I don't need a lunch. So I get to do meditation and play games with my kids because they're homeschooled. So,
right.
so yeah.
hmm And
So
I know, and that's great. I mean, that's why so many people become entrepreneurs is exactly to get the lifestyle that you have, where they do have more time. But before that, can you share a business strategy that people can implement in as little as 15 minutes per day?
a business strategy, okay, and now I want to make it tangible. So one of the things that Andrew Carnegie did was he paid somebody. Well, he didn't pay them, but he hired them to help tune his businesses and to tune it up and get his executives working really well. And the one thing that this guy said was the day before, have them set their intentions, set their goals the day before. And I know many people know about this, or maybe you've tried it, but once you do it consistently, you'll start seeing how things work out. But there's a basis for it. Now, the story probably didn't talk about it, but he said do it the day before, because here's what happens. You set the intentions, you can block off time. That's a tangible thing that you can do. But also, your mind has time to percolate and marinate over it. Your subconscious mind, which is working all the time. And 96, 98% of our results, behaviors, and actions come out of that supercomputer subconscious hard drive. And so why not give it the things you want to do a day in advance? So it gives us some time to percolate and marinate. And then when I often get up next morning and I have solutions and opportunities, or an email that came in that gives me the quickest, I look for the path of least resistance all the time. So anyway, that's the way I operate.
I love that. Even, I mean, going back when you seen the therapist and she said, well, pray. And so you prayed, and the next day an answer was given to you.
I said yes.
And so it was like you set the intention in your mind by praying, and something was percolating, but circumstances happened that gave you the answer the next day. So when you're writing out your intentions for the following day, you still allowing all this stuff to percolate and magic to happen, to where you're not having to work as hard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't have to force things anymore. I just, it naturally happens because
Mhm.
I asked for it. And, it's my expectation. It's like, if I'm going to set these intentions, I'm going to expect to fulfill them, and they're going to happen more naturally and easily. I always say I like to move through life with the heart path and also with the path of least resistance. So as I drive even, it's like path of least resistance, all green lights.
Gosh, Dan, you have given us so much wonderful information. And I know that you have an absolute fabulous gift for us. So can you share a little bit about it?
Absolutely. This is something based on all of my research about time management and being effective with our time. So it's called seven time saving secrets, and it's just shortcuts to success. And if you implement even one or two or three of them, you'll probably get back maybe 5-10 hours a week of productive time. So that's my gift.
Mhm. And how does that even fit in with, like you said, you spend 2 hours every morning, journaling, and then you have your meditation. And I know, like I said earlier, entrepreneurs really want all that freedom, but you always have the mind saying, my God, if I spend 2 hours journaling every morning, I'm not going to have enough time to do my work. And now you're saying these time-saving secrets are going to add hours. Can you sort of tell us how all this fits in together?
Well, I'll tell you about the morning practice. The morning practice is about setting myself up physically, mentally, and emotionally for the day. And there's many people out there. There's somebody that's kind of known in our space, which is Eben Pagan, and he did a ton of research about it and proved that people who have a morning ritual are successful. So I believe that if I own my morning, I own my day. So there's no question about it. I didn't start off with 2 hours. I might have started off with 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then it's sort of expanded and
Mhm.
grown, morphed into something bigger. It'll probably get to 5 hours someday. We'll see. But the thing is, I really want to set myself up for success. And that's what I find is the most beneficial. And
Mhm.
I'm really effective with my time. So I have no troubles getting things done. So, and I also set up conditions and circumstances so that I get things done efficiently and easily. So my whole calendar is set the day before, so I have no issues with that. And
Right.
then, and I have shortcuts. So, I don't have to think about what I'm wearing for the day. I have everything every day plotted. So, it's that easy. And so, I save time every time I do something. My workout, same thing, my gear and everything, it's all ready. And, I even shoot a video Facebook Live video on my walks in nature every morning. And so that's 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. And I have that set up. I have a selfie stick, ready my jacket and everything. It's just, I set up circumstances so it's no excuse environment. And then I just get things done easily and efficiently. But that morning time, that's sacred time. That's me. It's for me. And it makes the most benefit to my life and my business.
Right. Okay. And so a lot of it, again, the systems and even being in the, doing your morning journaling and taking your me time and writing out your intentions for the next day at the end of today, all of these are time-saving tips, which really which make you more successful, because then you can be more effective in less time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, the nice thing about those intentions, by the way, is I put them in an app that actually is linked to my calendar. So I put them in the app and I put a time to them, and then they block off time on my calendar. So I'm doing things like once I do it once, it's done right down to the level of my calendar. So
I love it. And so you want to, to our listeners, you want to head on over to bizsuccessin15.com/Dan. That's bizsuccessin15.com/Dan, all lowercase DAN, and grab your 7 times saving secrets. And Dan, do you have any parting words for us?
Yes. I think the key thing today is to at least be a little, like, if you're here and you're listening to this and you're gathering information, listen to it again, because the more you listen to things, the more you understand. And Pythagoras said, know thyself. He wasn't joking. If you know yourself and understand yourself at a deeper level, then you know how to function in the world. And if we only control our thoughts and our actions, then we should work on those things and know and understand ourselves at a deep level, and then work on the people around us. And once we do that, wow, what a difference life makes. You can then flow and have great communications and relationships, and enjoy the 3 pillars of life, which is your relationships, your health, and career and business and success, and more free time, more free will, free attention, if that's what you like and love.
I love it. Thank you very much, Dan. It's been a pleasure having you today.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Cindy.
Thank you. So hop on over to bizsuccessin15.com/Dan, where you'll find all links from today's show. You'll be able to re-listen to Dan's words of wisdom and catch up on past episodes that you might have missed. While you're there, be sure to grab your 7 time saving secrets and start saving those 5 to 10 hours a week where you can be more effective and have more quality time. I hope you have a great week. Big hugs, and be sure to tune in next time for another great episode. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show, and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.